All right, welcome to the Canarian International Meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Mossy and I am an alcoholic.
And my name is Mick, and I'm an alcoholic, and we're both serving as your secretaries today. Please join us in a moment's silence and to remember the still suffering alcoholic, both inside and outside this meeting.
And Matthew is going to share the preamble, and
Wolf.
Wolf is going to read it for us. There you go, Wolf.
Good morning, everyone. Wolf Alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. AA has no dues or fees. It is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy. Neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Thank you, Wolf. And a warm welcome goes out to any newcomers or anyone returning to Alcoholics Anonymous.
The chat is now disabled until the end of the meeting, except for the meeting hosts. If you feel the meeting is security is at risk at any time during the meeting, please private message one of the co-hosts so they can check it out.
And that's it, guys. That's all our introductions done. As you know, this is our old timers meeting. The share goes on for 40, 45, 50 minutes, or however long it takes John to do his thing. So John, you're very welcome. You know the drill yourself. And it's fantastic to have you here. It's fantastic to have the crew, your followers with you as well. You're all very welcome today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mossy. Aloha. My name is John, and I am most certainly an alcoholic. And TYG Online is my home group. It's an offshoot of the TYG Beach Meeting, which meets in Kailua, Oahu, Hawaii, weekdays at 7 a.m., weekends at 8 a.m. And that's a really great group to be a part of, especially during COVID. It really saved my bacon that it was there every day for me, and I'm really grateful to that group. And there's some really great people in the group. I'm really blessed that so many people from TYG Online have shown up. My sister, my friends, Barbara, my wife, all my friends, a lot of our friends from Canarians. This is a real blessing. And I was also blessed to actually meet Mossy in person at the Vancouver International Convention. We see in these Zoom rooms so many people, but getting a chance to meet Mossy in Vancouver was really a treat. And in Vancouver, it was a chance for me to refresh and recharge that part of my program based around the fellowship. And that's kind of what I wanted to focus on in my share today. And let me tell you, first of all, let's just get a couple things out of the way right from the get-go. The first thing is that Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life. Full stop. I would be dead a long time ago. It also, and this is something I did not ask for, it gave me a life really worth living. When I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous in 1993, I just didn't want to die. You know, this whole thing about being happy, joyous, and free, all that stuff, that's fine. But just if I could just not drink for a day and not die of alcoholism, like I was so surprised to hear that Amy Winehouse, when they did her toxicology report, it was alcohol. I was expecting when she had passed away that it was going to be all sorts of drugs and stuff, but she ended up dying probably the way I would have died. And in my last days of drinking, it was desperately lonely. I was in this little dark room in late 1992, early 1993, this little dark room with a little half-broken black and white TV set. I'd get angry at what I saw on the news. I had kind of an MO that I would make a big glass of vodka with ice and a little bit of mixer. And we called it, friends, people who knew me, they would call them gargle blasters, because you really had to guzzle the whole thing down in one shot because it tasted so awful. That and so it was there used to be a thing, actually. Some of you might know it. Douglas Adams, they had a drink on that, on the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, called a Pan Galactic Gargle Blaster, and so this thing was sort of named after that, from that Douglas Adams show, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So I would try to get my ducks in a row, and this really dates me, although I've already said what year it was. But I was really start seriously drinking during Johnny Carson's monologue, and more often than not, I wouldn't remember the end of it. You drink a couple of these gargle blasters, and the second or third or sometimes fourth one is down, and the first one's just starting to kick in. I would buy these big bottles of vodka thinking, well, this will last me 2 days. I was living on student loans. I was buying the cheapest darn mixer I could get. I'd buy these big bottles of vodka thinking it'd last me a couple days, but I'd come to, and in bad circumstances, stains on the carpet, that sort of thing. I'd come to, and almost all the big bottle of vodka would be gone. So I was really quite worried when I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous that if I couldn't stop drinking, I was just going to die an ugly alcoholic death alone. Somebody would say, hey, what's that smell in that room? We haven't seen John for a few days. In Bill's story, he talks about how in his darkest days, he was worried about joining that, he says, that endless procession of sots that had gone on before, those nameless drunks who have died before. And I very nearly, I could have easily become one of them. My sisters here, they would have been talking about, oh, we used to have a brother. Whatever happened to him, we just don't talk about him anymore. But these days, I get to be there for my family. I get to say hi to my sister regularly at London lunchtime meeting, and that's really a cool thing. Today, back in the day, I when I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous, it was, why am I an alcoholic? I accepted I was an alcoholic. That was no problem. But why am I an alcoholic? Why me? And boy, this kind of sucks to have to go back to Alcoholics Anonymous. But frankly, I was elated when I got a day sober. I was on a pink cloud from the get-go. I was just so tickled pink to still be alive. I really identify with what it says in the 12 and 12 under step 1, with under the lash of alcoholism, we are driven. I was driven under the lash of alcoholism to work this hokey, you look at this program, if anybody's new to this program, this is some pretty hokey stuff if you're just coming off the street. It's like, who cares to admit my faults? Do I care to admit my faults? And to another person? Holy cow. And doing a third step prayer in public, that's so embarrassing. Dude, but the fact of the matter is, if I'm going to save my life, this is what I see the people in front of me do. So now I'm going to backtrack a little. We're going to take a look at the larger picture. And to do that, to backtrack, I'm going to start at the end. Page 164 of the big book. Bill writes, our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. That was written in the 30s. The doctor's opinion was written in the 30s. These days, there's real research that's gone on to this, and one thing that really strongly affected my step 1 was finding out that there's something that they can actually measure, physical, in me. When I came back into the rooms, it was like, yeah, sure, I'm an alcoholic, but why? Today, well, first of all, let's look at the big picture. when I speak at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm telling my story. When I hear other people, it's telling their story. But what about alcoholism as a whole? And this comes from the journal Science, 2018, which is a peer-reviewed journal. And this is just the general statistics. It says more than 2 billion people worldwide regularly drink alcohol. Alcohol is a component cause of more than 200 diseases and causes about 3.3 million deaths per year globally. The major disease burden comes from harmful alcohol consumption and alcohol dependence. Not everyone who regularly consumes alcohol becomes dependent. About 15% do. Patients suffering from alcohol dependence no longer have the freedom to choose. I actually had, I think this article was written by normies because I was born restless, irritable, discontent. The doctor's opinion, he nails me. He's got me right to the T. I was restless, irritable, discontent from the beginning. But the thing was, I thought everybody was that way. I didn't really know I was different. I thought everybody felt this way. We hear in these rooms about, they handed out the instructions for life and I wasn't there, stuff like that. All these recurring themes. But these days, I've heard enough stories to realize, and certainly my own family history, to realize that a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, alcoholism runs in families. There's probably a genetic component, and a lot of the stuff I went through as a kid, which was chaotic. Becky was there a lot of the time. Let's just say it was chaotic. And everybody loved each other, and I look back and I was blessed with that childhood, but it was chaotic, man. And one of the great blessings of being a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous is that my daughter did not have to go through that. I've got a 25-year-old daughter who did not have to go through the stuff I went through as a kid. And that's just an enormous blessing. But one example of my restless, irritable discontent, my selfishness, self-centeredness, I think it might have been Becky's birthday or one of my other brothers and sisters' birthdays, and they're doing the piñata, right? They're banging the piñata. All these kids are younger than me, so I got a plan. Okay, as soon as this piñata drops, I'm just diving like a football player on the whole thing, and so that's what I do, right? Selfish, self-centered. I got the whole damn piñata now. It's on the ground, and I remember being dragged out by my ankles by my dad, so all the little kids could get to the candy, right? So that's just that's the way I was. But I never felt content. Something was always wrong. Uh, there was a lot of craziness going on, and the thing is, to be honest, I brought a lot of the craziness myself, right? I was a big part of that crazy. And when I had my very first drink, it was, oh my God, why didn't somebody tell me about this? Why didn't all of a sudden, all that anger, frustration, all that stuff just melted away. And so alcohol was my medicine. It was the way I dealt with life. It was important for how I felt. People ask me in the worst days of my drinking sometimes, why do you drink? Why do you drink? And it talks about how in More About Alcoholism, I think it is that if you ask an alcoholic, sometimes an alcoholic won't know. I was a baffled lot, and for that matter, I was baffled a lot, but we'll leave that as. I just knew that I felt better when I was drunk. All the anger and frustration was gone. And I was a blackout drinker from the very beginning. I distinctly remember at the age of 16, sort of coming out of coming to the next morning, blackout evening as usual. Becky remembers I was living in the basement. I was living on this dirt floor basement, and when it rained a lot, the water table would come up, and every stuff would be floating in about 2 or 3 inches of water. But it was good because as somebody who was restless, irritable, discontent, I could stay away from everybody else. I had my own isolated little place. Okay, so sure, stuff was floating around in where I slept, but I also had an outside entrance, the old coal chute, which was very good for sneaking out of the house. Um, so uh, I found my medicine, and in retrospect, after going to a lot of meetings, doing 4 steps, 6 steps, 7 steps, 10 steps, I realize now that uh, I drank so I could feel better. Just that's the way it was. It was my way of managing how I felt. And today I realize that I am driven by my feelings. I'm driven by how I feel. If I feel like I want vanilla ice cream, then the logical part starts wheeling, those wheels start turning and say, oh, how am I going to get vanilla ice cream? But when I wanted a drink, it's like, damn it, I want a drink. And I would bicycle through the snow, arrive at the liquor store 5 minutes before they close. If I wanted a drink, I was, damn it, I'm going to get a drink because it was my medicine. It was what I needed to feel okay. So I came out of this blackout at 16, right? And well, the morning after the blackout, but I was quite groggy. And I remember thinking, John, if you keep doing stuff like this, you're not going to live to 18. The fact was, I managed to somehow stay. Bill writes about this in his story. Is the mind and body are remarkable. How we could go on and on through this nightmare scenario for years. Finally, in 1985, I had seen. I'm crashing and burning semester after semester at University of Maryland. I would withdraw the last day to withdraw from classes. And I think I see these guys, these recruiters. It's the Reagan's big buildup of the military. He wanted a 400 ship navy and all this stuff. Margaret Thatcher was putting Pershing missiles in Europe. It was that time, the dark part of the Cold War, the scary part. And I thought, well, I'm going to join the Navy. They'll teach me how to drink. And in some ways, they actually did, because it didn't take too long when people got to know me that my division officer on the ship pulled me aside, and let's use the air quotes here, he pointed me to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was in no position to say no. I went to that first meeting, and it was amazing. I expected, guys in trench coats with little bottles and, talking about whining about how they couldn't drink that day, stuff like that. Instead, it was this wonderful meeting. I think it was, admittedly, it's a little foggy. This was 1987. I think it was a meeting called Elite E Speakers. I know it was at Central Union Church. And I heard these people sharing who were really funny. It was a wife and husband, and he was the straight, and the wife was just ripping into him. They were hilarious, telling their stories, their drunken escapades together. Becky got a chance to meet them, Bob and Helen Bowen. Oh, back in the late 90s, we would give them rides to meetings. Sometimes Bob had passed away, and Helen was getting quite old, but. I heard laughter. I heard smiles. I heard the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous in that meeting. And it was such a relief. I felt like I was a part of, and I'd been so isolated, hiding my drinking as best I could. I was just so relieved, but I wasn't quite beat down bad enough. I promised my division officer that I was going to stop drinking the rest of my time in the Navy, and I did that. I kept my promise to my division officer, but when I left the Navy in 1989, right before Christmas, I had a friend with cold Coors Light. Why cold Coors Light? I don't know. What was I thinking? Uh, and at this point, I had about a little over 2 years of not drinking. The first year, let me tell you a story about one of the meetings. Okay, this is now 1987, maybe early 88, around Pearl Harbor. And I'm going to this meeting, Danny might remember it, called Makalapa Moonshiners. And yeah, Danny might remember. It was in this, these old buildings were ready to fall down. They were like Second World War type buildings that were just being held up by the termites holding hands. And and it was supposed to be a candlelight meeting, but instead it was a kerosene light. And these old grizzled, this was old guys. Oh, these old grizzled Davy guys, because this is right by Pearl Harbor. Uh, these old Navy guys would be sitting around this kerosene lamp talking the program, doing the deal. And it was a 2-hour meeting with a break in the middle, started at I think 10 o'clock at night, went to midnight, the break at 11. But this rat would regularly run across the pipes at right around the break time. And I just thought, normies wouldn't really appreciate this, but I'm an alcoholic, man. I thought that was the best thing in the world. A meeting with its own rat. And it was just great to see this rat story along there. So I was enjoying life, going to meetings in 87 or 88, and my ship went on deployment. I stopped going to meetings. We were out, haze grade underway. We were out. It was a beautiful summer. I wasn't drinking. One of the most beautiful summers I ever spent. We were following the aircraft carrier, the Carl Vinson, and every now and then we would have what's called lifeguard duty, and we would be trailing the aircraft carrier about a kilometer behind it, so that if a plane went into the drink, if a plane missed its landing, we'd be there to pick up the pilot. So sunset off the Arabian Peninsula, the sky is just beautiful orange red. This is one of those gifts of sobriety. And I'm out there just soaking in how beautiful it is. And these F-14s or F-16s, whatever they were, I'm in the Navy. I don't know what these planes are, things with wings, but they're coming low over our ship with the afterburners on, and you're looking, and these things are just roaring past just overhead. You could almost throw a rock and hit these things. It was just an amazing summer. And that was given to me by sobriety, right? Somehow I managed to stay alive. Somehow I managed to be pointed to my first meeting. It was beautiful. But you would think I would learn, this beautiful existence I was given 87, 88, early 89. But when I left the Navy, that drink I'd been romancing that drink. I stopped going to meetings after deployment. I thought I had it figured out. I knew how to do this deal. Clearly, it's the alcohol. I just won't drink. Clearly, I hadn't read the big book, at least enough. Alcohol was just the symptom. I had no clue about my restless, irritable, discontent nature. Alcohol was my solution. I've heard at other meetings how if you really want to experience pain, be an alcoholic without a program and without alcohol. That's painful. So, I wasn't working a program at the end of 89. And when I got back to the mainland, I went in. And I remember having that first beer, leaning back on a kitchen couch. By the way, the mainland, man, it was cold. It was nasty. I just left Hawaii. It was a beautiful sunny day leaving in December of 89. I get back, it's this drizzly rain out of National Airport in DC. Now it's Reagan National Airport. It's like, we got to learn from our mistakes. So I'm drinking this first beer, and I'm thinking, man, I just threw away 2 years plus of sobriety, dry time, whatever. And I really was kind of disappointed in myself. But I knew I'd been romancing that drink for so long, and it was a disappointment. I thought it would be so good. It wasn't. It wasn't. It was just it was a complete disappointment. But I was off the races again, and I thought it would be so easy to come back. I'll just go to a few meetings. I'll just go to a meeting, and I did try to go to a couple of meetings. First of all, I tried to stop drinking on January 1st of 1990. I thought this is great. End of the decade. I'm just gonna not drink. I'm just not gonna drink alcohol. And by the time I had that first drink a couple months later, people around me were like, "Oh my God, John, you need a drink." I was just a raging asshole. I hope that is that being recorded. I was just a raging asshole, and everybody around me knew it too. And I needed a drink. Sometimes I'll tell people, if I ever feel the way I felt back then, I'm gonna drink. I'm gonna drink again. I got to. I have to watch how I feel. There are lots of names for it. It's uh, spiritual transformation or spiritual awakening, emotional sobriety, whatever it is. I can't feel that way again, and I have to do everything I can. This is my let's see, this is my third meeting in 12 hours, right? I go to a lot of meetings. I've got 32 years sobriety. Uh, you, I haven't had a drink in over 32 years. Certainly, alcohol is not my problem, but I still do crazy alcoholic stuff. Uh, Sometimes for my background, I'll put a picture of the koi pond behind me. And that started with a resentment. I got pissed off at something and I just started digging a hole in the ground. And now I've got a great big koi pond. I probably should have called my sponsor. I probably should have done a 10-step inventory. But hey, we'll take what we got. Progress, not perfection. Which, by the way, reminds me, one of my favorite lines from the Big Book is "We are not saints." Um, do I have time for a small digression? Looks like I do have time for a small digression. We are not saints. Bill wrote that in the beginning of chapter 5. That is heartening. When I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous, I thought Bill was this icon, this paragon, and in a lot of ways he is. Without Bill, I wouldn't be sober today. But if you actually look at who Bill was, he was a human with feet of clay, just like the rest of us. He made mistakes. One of my favorite examples, and this is an example of family, an example I could talk about in a family environment, is the chapter to the wives. That chapter is introduced by, we've asked the wives of Alcoholics Anonymous to talk about their experience and to talk. Who wrote that chapter? Bill wrote that chapter. uh, Lois was furious. Lois was absolutely furious. And to talk about a little bit self-serving, in that chapter, it talks about, there may be many skeletons in the closet, but we gotta let bygones be bygones. We don't ever bring up too many of these skeletons. Boy, Bill. And then there's the story about how the to the employer chapter, how we got the rights to that. Hank, who wrote that chapter, you can look up a history of who Hank was. Hank went back out. He and Bill were running mates doing the auto polish job, and Hank went back out, and he came back to Bill's office at what became the general service office or whatever. The Big Book was being prepped, being put into being prepared for publication, and Hank just needed a few bucks for a bottle of booze. And so Bill, the salesman, he's going like, okay, sign this paperwork, give us the rights to the employer chapter, and I'll give you like $10, whatever. And we got the rights. That was pretty sleazy if you ask me, but that's just my humble opinion. Anyway, we are not saints. So when it got really bad in late 1992, early 1993, I mean, really, really bad. I told you how I was drinking these gargle blasters just full of vodka. Here's a line that you don't hear most normies say. There's nothing quite like the taste of hot vodka going down. except of course the taste of hot vodka coming right back up. Normies don't laugh at that. They go, "What's wrong with this person?" uh, so, but when I came back, and this is the part of the story I told Mossy in Vancouver. When I came back, I knew that this was life or death. I just got a one-way ticket back to Hawaii. I knew some meetings that I really enjoyed, including the happy hour meeting, which was held at the VFW, which is long gone. VFW just outside Waikiki, near where the convention center is now. And this was another one of those old buildings that was, held together with termites. When people would stomp their feet, you thought that, watch out, the floors, there were holes in the floor in some places. Danny, I'm sure, remembers the VFW happy hour, but it was a happening meeting. It was hilarious. And so I land. My very last drink was on February 7th of 1993. My last drink up to now. I got to watch how I feel. I have to watch my emotional sobriety. But my last drink till today was on the plane, several hours out of Honolulu, just to not shake so much. I had a couple Bloody Marys on the plane, and I landed in Honolulu. I had a backpack and a sports bag. That was it. And my only plan was, what's my plan? I end up it's February 7th of 1993 was a Sunday. So I just walk out of the airport and I catch a bus into Waikiki. In the Navy, I had stayed at this one hotel, the Ilima Hotel. It was nice in the Navy, nice in the 80s. I don't know what it's like now. And so I catch the bus into Waikiki. I walk to this hotel and I say, "Hi, I used to stay here when I was in the Navy a few years ago. Can I get a room?" And the guy pretty much laughs at me and looks at me. He goes, "Don't you realize this is Pro Bowl weekend? They've got the Pro Bowl going on. For those of you out of the United States, that's a big football game. And it used to be here in Hawaii. I don't know I think they've moved it now. And but the guy was kind enough. He got me a hotel room, and the so February 8th is my first full day sober. I was still trying to get my, but I did not drink. That the hardest night of my sobriety was the night of February 7th, because I was in Waikiki. I knew it had only been 8 hours, 10 hours since my last drink, and I knew all I had to do was go down to the street, go to the many they're called ABC stores here, and they'd be happy to sell me a bottle of vodka. And I didn't drink. A miracle. February 8th, I was scrambling to find a place to stay. February 9th, which is my belly button birthday, I walked back into the happy hour meeting with one day sober. And of course, the pride was coming back right away. I walked into happy hour and they're announcing any newcomers, that sort of thing. And I'm John, I'm an alcoholic, and I'm working on day 2. Woohoo! What I told Mossy in Vancouver was that when I was waiting for that bus, I think I was a little foggy, right? It was day 0. I think I said a little prayer of like, "Okay, God, you got this. Clearly, I do not have this." And for me, there was a lot of step 1, step 2, and step 3, just there, waiting for that bus to go into Waikiki, waiting to get to that first meeting. The fact that I was willing to just drop everything, a backpack, sports bag, and my only goal was to get to the happy hour meeting. And I got to it, and I mentioned at the beginning that I sort of wanted to talk about fellowship a little bit. I was talking with a friend after the London lunchtime meeting. We often talk after the meeting about how in early sobriety I had a little pack. There were a whole bunch of us. Jane and several of you will remember Badusha. She's still around. I think she's living on Maui. But Badusha, there was a guy named Max. There was a guy. Some of them have gone. But there was a real pack of us who all got sober around the same time when the old timers were doing their stuff. Sometimes they'd be throwing candy across, if you weren't paying attention, somebody would be whipping a piece of hard candy at you. It was a fun meeting. That was Joe Landry, right? He's now going to the big meeting in the sky. He helped a lot of people. He's also not a saint, but which of us are saints? So we would huddle around the coffee pot and just talk amongst ourselves sometimes. But I still know Badusha. I still, if Eric was the other one I was going to mention. If I run into, I still know these people, right? Eric went. I think we went back out, but I think he's back in. But Badusha is still sober, and I run into her at meetings. I can text Badusha right now if I wanted to. She's still sober. She's got a few weeks more sobriety than I do. She was January or late, I think January, maybe late December, and I was February. But this pack, there was a bunch of us just hanging on with our fingernails. Another thing about that happy hour meeting, which was really kind of cool, and Joe Landry, he was kind of the poobah of that meeting. He would say, if you're not sure, if you haven't really done your step one, just past the bathrooms is the bar, right? It's at a VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars, for any of you who don't know what VFW stands for. It's kind of this place where veterans get drunk, kind of, right? If you want to get drunk, just walk past the bathrooms and there's a bar, right? If you're not sure, there you go. It's that big book challenge. My first time around in Alcoholics Anonymous, I thought the big book challenge was pretty cool. No, look, the big book says go have a drink. Today, it scares the willies out of me, right? I do not want to test. I do not want to find out again. There's, I would almost rather drink rat poison. I am deathly afraid of that first drink, and that's a healthy fear. I haven't even gotten to many of the steps, but I knew it was life and death, so I got a sponsor right away. I did the third step prayer on my knees with my sponsor. Like I said, this stuff is kind of wacky if you don't have much experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. When you first come, it's like, what is this stuff? But just like the big book, this is the experience that works. This is why those people at my very first meeting were laughing and smiling and telling jokes like the jokes I hear before Canarian's meeting, like the fellowship I hear before the London lunchtime meeting, like the fellowship I hear before my home group, TYG Online. This is what works. And when I came back, I just wanted whatever works, right? I was desperate to stay alive, desperate to stay sober. And so I did that third step prayer on my knees in public with my sponsor when I think I had about 30 days. What was really kind of nice was that as I looked up at my sponsor, there was this beautiful full moon rising behind him. And that was really nice. I pushed and I insisted, and I did my fifth step the day before Easter of 1993. I had just under 90 days, so I got my fifth step out of the way before 90 days. These days, getting back to that, you really want to know pain, don't have a program and don't drink. These days, I really push sponsees to do the steps quick. We can always go back and do another round of steps, but where am I going to find relief, right? I got to get relief. If I'm not drinking, I got to find relief somewhere. And I get my relief from the steps, from this program, from the fellowship. I'll take it all three sides of the triangle. And if it was a square, I'd go for that too. I'm desperate to stay alive and sober. And life has been very good. I went from that dark, dank room guzzling vodka, angry at the TV. The day before I made 6 months, I was set up on a blind date by my sponsor and his girlfriend, who was my wife's sponsee, and I got that sort of told the punchline there. I went on a blind date and I met my beautiful wife Jane, who we've known each other now coming up on 33 years. It's almost 33 years. It'll be 33 years that we've known each other, and we're coming up on 29 years of marriage. Here's a tip for you, by the way, if you're going to get married in the fellowship and stuff like that. First of all, you know what they say? They say having a relationship under 1 year, you're not supposed to do it, all that stuff. And one of the things people will say is, hey, if you want to date somebody in the fellowship, the odds are good, but the goods are odd. Luckily that did not. Well, I mean, Jane may have a different opinion about me, but I think I was very lucky to meet. I was super lucky to meet Jane. uh, uh, but when you plan your wedding, do it on area assembly weekend, especially if it's the budget assembly, because people are looking for an out from going to the budget assembly. So we had our wedding. I had some 3 years sober. All these people from the fellowship were showing up. Becky was there. We had it on budget assembly weekend. And here in Hawaii, the assemblies are often on different islands. So, it's not like you could just go to the wedding and go back to the assembly. It means flying to another island. So that was a lot of fun. We did our honeymoon was going to different. We did the back on a ship. We took the ship around the islands, and we got to go to meetings on other islands. Jane grew up on Maui and the Big Island. We got to meet people on Maui. It was just a real blessing. One of the other things one of the blessings of sobriety is like, how does this happen? How does this happen? I went from, coming to in my own puke in a dark room. Before I made 9 months sober, I'd always dreamed of working at the telescopes on Mauna Kea, right? They're one of those things that I'm just in awe of. It's one of those dreams. And before I made 9 months sober, this was now November of 1993, I was part of engineering support for a data thing at the telescope, and back then we were trying to look at the full moon, and so it was a full moon in November, and wouldn't you know it, there was an eclipse. So we couldn't take data during the eclipse. It was like, we can't do anything during the eclipse at the telescope on Mauna Kea. So I'm just so astounded to be up at Mauna Kea, 14,000 feet. It's just spectacular with these incredible telescopes around me. And this eclipse is going on. We can't work. So I decided I'm going to hike over to the true summit. And the terrain there is kind of cinders. It's these volcanic cinders. It's sort of like loose gravel. And so I hiked during the beginning of the eclipse to the true summit of Mauna Kea, and I stood there for the eclipse. And it's cold, by the way, at 14,000 feet. It was nighttime. The wind is going, and the eclipse happens, and it's just like, thank you, God. I mean, 9 months ago, I was coming to in my own puke, and here I am at the summit of Mauna Kea during a lunar eclipse. Right. And I get to go to the true summit and just stand here and watch this eclipse. Here's another pro tip. If it's a really dark eclipse, bring a flashlight. So I'm freezing on the summit. It's this beautiful eclipse. And now it's so dark, I can't hike back. I mean, it's really dark. I can't hike back. I have to wait till the end of totality of the eclipse to hike back to the telescope. And there were what a beautiful thing. There are miracles in these rooms. Just the fact that I'm alive is a freaking miracle. The fact that when I came back, and if you guys had told me there were 1,000 steps to do, I would have said, let's get going, because my life is on the line every day. My life was on the line then, and it is still on the line. If there were 1,000 steps to do, then let's get going. If I had to become a Hare Krishna, then let's get that orange saffron on my forehead and orange robes, and I'll go ring bells at the airport, right? Whatever, I was willing to do whatever it takes to stay sober, which is the difference between this time and the first time around, right? When I was staying sober for the promise to my division officer. This time, it's my life is on the line. So, this happy, joyous, and free stuff, that's just a bonus. Danny, my friend Danny here, always says it's another day in the bonus round. And I really want to steal that line, Danny. It is another day in the bonus round because I would have died. I got the opportunity to meet the love of my life day before I had 6 months. By the way, Jane and I were talking, well, I think it was Jane. Jane and I were talking about doing a workshop on the 13th step. And if we had the name of the workshop, it would be 13th step, giving it to the newcomer. Anyway, okay, you got to know the 13th. Some of you smiled for that. James just saying, John, don't go there. I got to meet the love of my. I got to meet the love of my life. I got to be there for family. I got to be there for my family when needed. It's been such a blessing to be sober. I have a daughter today who's 25. We don't always get along, but believe me, it's so much better than when I grew up. Right? Nobody's. I had a whole hot turkey fresh from the oven thrown at me as a kid. There are a lot. Jackie, I don't know if you remember that, but Mom threw a turkey at me. I mean, it's right out of the oven. Just maybe that's why I don't eat turkey. My daughter has never had a turkey thrown at her, and she's had the opportunity to grow up in a semi-sane life. Being a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a blessing. I started reading about some of these statistics about Alcoholics Anonymous. As sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous, when we go to meetings and we share our stories, we, just by being here through the years, we get to see people show up and be pulled from the grave, just like I was pulled. I had one foot in the grave, and we get to see people come back to life. It is such a blessing. Alcoholics Anonymous does not get the credit it deserves. Alcoholics Anonymous is the best thing since sliced bread, in my opinion. It's we save lives every single day. Sometimes I get a little teary when I read about in this book, Pass It On, about the winter of, I think it was winter 37, when they almost gave up. Ebby went back out, and Dr. Bob's house was about to be repossessed. And they thought, well, this kind of works for a while, but it doesn't really work. They were just waiting until Bill and Bob were going to go back out, just like Ebby. And they decided to do an inventory. And this was right before Christmas of 37. Dark days. And they did the inventory, and they realized that 40 hopeless alcoholics like me were staying sober. And they decided that Christmas to keep going. Right? I wouldn't be alive if they had decided otherwise. I'm also reminded sometimes that, the happenstance of the fellowship. Roland was asking Dr. Jung how he could stay sober. He couldn't stay sober. And Dr. Jung, he didn't want to tell Roland some wacky story about spiritual and, personalities. He's a doctor. He's going to be thrown out as a quack if he talks about this stuff. But instead, he actually fessed up, and he told Roland, in a moment of weakness, maybe, what you need is a spiritual awakening. How undoctorly. He told that to Roland. Roland told that to Ebby. Ebby told that to Bill. And I was told that at meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. My life has just been a blessing. Mossy, do I still have a couple minutes?
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So one thing that I also wanted to point out is that I realized that even though I did things as a desperate alcoholic would do, I have to keep an open mind. And in the story, The Vicious Cycle, Jim, the guy that insisted that we write God as we understand him, right? Jim writes on page 227 of the fourth edition, and this just struck me recently in the last year. At that time, this is really early A. At that time, the group in New York was comprised of about 12 men who were working on the principle of every drunk for himself. We had no real formula, no name, no big book, no 12 steps. They were probably using the Oxford 6 steps. We would follow one man's ideas for a while, decide he was wrong, and switch to another's method. But we were, and that's italicized, we were staying sober as long as we kept and talked together. It was a blessing to talk to Mossy in Vancouver, one alcoholic talking to another. It's always a blessing to talk to my sponsor, one alcoholic talking to another. It's a blessing to talk to all of you, one alcoholic talking to several others. This is how it works. We do this together. I don't do this apart. Other people may have, when I hear other people staying sober other ways, that's great. But for me, I have to stick the landing every single day. I can't have a near miss some days. So I'm going to do meetings, steps, sponsors, sponsees. I'm going to do the deal with all the fervor of the dying, grabbing a life preserver, because this has saved my life. It's given me a life. And I want to thank you all for being here. Blessings to you all, and aloha.
Aloha, my friend. And thanks so much for sharing with us this evening. I got so much from you, John. One of the things you hit on there was the fellowship. And you spoke about meeting me in Vancouver, and it just amazes me that this platform that I didn't believe was going to ever work, I knew it wasn't going to work, has brought me halfway around the world to meet people. And getting the opportunity to meet people and have a laugh and make friendships for life has amazed me. And Kathleen is over in the UK at the moment with her sponsor, and she's going around meeting people, and it's a beautiful thing to watch somebody else see what the fellowship will do. I'm all emotional over it because I think it's just a beautiful thing to watch. Not just somebody getting well, but somebody been taken into the fellowship and people going out of the way to meet other people. It's a beautiful thing. I just love being sober. Look at the smile on Kathleen's face. She's like that all weekend. That's it. Guys, thanks for allowing me to do service. Take it away there, Mick. Unmute yourself. You don't have to do another chair now, but you can unmute yourself.
You won't let me unmute myself, that's fine, because you'll know I'll go into one. John, fantastic. I identified with lots and lots and what you sharing, especially when you said about don't go there. Jane said to you, don't go there, because I used to do joint chairs with my wife, who was 40 years in Al-Anon, and we'd be sharing, and I'd be talking away, and she'd lean forward and say, Mick, I don't think it was quite like that. And that, but it's fantastic listening to you, and We also have a lunchtime meeting every Sunday at 1 p.m. UK time. This is a meditation meeting.
And Saturdays at 6 o'clock, we have the old timers meeting, an extended share recording for the archives. And on Thursday, we have an evening meeting starting at 7:30 UK time. We use the same meeting code for all our meetings.
Stick around for fellowship after the meeting. If you want a breakout room after the meeting, please let the hosts know.
And you look hard, who you see here,
What you hear here,
when you leave here.
let it stay here.
And that's it, guys. That's the end of it. That's, or as some of our host said, that's a wrap, guys. So, John, will you lead us out with this friendly prayer, please?
Sure, it'd be an honor. And thank you all very much. It's great to see all of you guys, my friends, my sister, my wife, who's probably at my home group right now. Anyway, here we go. The Wii version. God, please grant us the serenity to accept things we cannot change,
To change things we can,
and the wisdom to know the difference.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.